So historic environment planning, it's just a brief overview of the sort of things that we do. We provide planning advice on archaeology to the 11 districts and boroughs of Surrey, as well as to the county council itself. There's a slight different relationship between how we provide the advice to the districts and boroughs. To the districts and boroughs, we are advising them the correct course of action. In terms of the county council, as county archaeologists, we are telling them what to do. So our opinion is this county council opinion. That is our remit to provide them with that. We provide historic buildings and conservation area planning advice services to the county council and to Tandridge District Council, and our historic buildings officer also provides the county council with advice on how to maintain and keep its own heritage properties. And we do the same for the archaeological sites. So any property that the county owns that has heritage asset status, listed buildings, archaeological sites, common lands, all that kind of stuff, where there might be archaeology or a listed building or a locally listed site that the county council owns, then it's our job to provide the advice and guidance on how to maintain that. We maintain the Surrey Historic Environment Record. I'm sure some of you have used that in the past, and we make sure that that's as up to date as we can get it, and we make that available to the public and to developers and anyone else who consults us basically on that. You'll also know Simon Maslin, the Surrey Finds Liaison Officer. We host his post. It's actually paid for largely by the British Museum, not entirely. The County Council contributes about 25% of the costs of that post, but we host that on behalf of the British Museum. We provide a general heritage and archaeological advice service to the public. So we do get a fair amount of inquiries from people who just want to know something or don't know how to handle something that they've found, or want some general guidance. We do things like coordinate the historic environment group and the forum that goes with it. I'm well aware that these have kind of slipped in the last couple of years with COVID and going virtual and what have you. But they're still a thing. We have a couple of historic environment group liaison meetings every year with the Society and Historic England, just to touch base and make sure that we're all kind of working along to the same page and not at cross purposes. And we do carry out certain special projects related to heritage, one of which you'll hear today that we've got going on at the moment, which is about local listing. A few things specifically that we do. We comment, advise and write heritage archaeological planning policy for the county and the districts and boroughs. They actually write most of it themselves these days based on what they've already got. Back in the day, back originally in the kind of early 90s, the policy would have been drafted by the county council, and that's been taken forward and kind of tweaked and fiddled around with and altered ever since, and they continue to do so and ask us for comments. Occasionally they make a big boo-boo on it, and we have to write something extensive back. During lockdown, actually, one of the districts put forward a planning policy proposal for heritage and archaeology, which I thought was thoroughly unsuitable, and we objected, which apparently I was told is something the county council never does. But I did, and they changed it. So we do have a role in writing policy for the districts and boroughs. We have a fairly large number of planning applications that come through us, probably about 1,200 a year, that we comment on for archaeological and historic buildings purposes. Mostly that's development work, but it can also be policy. And we also respond to and comment on the government consultations that affect heritage. Obviously, the one out at the moment is the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill that's going through Parliament. But there have been others, and there are a lot that happen every year. We monitor the archaeological work being carried out by professional organisations in the county to ensure compliance with standards. And we make sure that all the information that they collate and collect is transferred to the Historic Environment Record afterwards to make sure that's as accurate as it can be. We do work with the other heritage organisations in Surrey, as I said, particularly yourselves at the Society and also Historic England, but there are a few others that we have dealings with, so the Weald and Iron Group and the industrial history people. So we keep in touch as far as we can with our fellow heritage professionals and other organisations working in the county. As I said, we'll help the public where we can with heritage queries, either by answering them directly or by sending them to the correct place. Quite a lot of queries are not for us. They may well be for the district conservation officer, for example. So we'll direct them to the correct place to get their questions answered. I am the diocese advisory archaeologist for Surrey as well, for the Guildford diocese. So I do work on church-related stuff for them. That extends slightly outside of Surrey's borders as well. So, for example, the church at Fleet, which burnt down a few years ago, falls within my remit as an archaeologist to work on. We represent Surrey with the national heritage bodies, HER Forum, the Association of Local Government Archaeological Officers, Historic England, Chartered Institute for Archaeologists, Rescue, the CBA, etc. So we have some liaison work with them. And we provide an emergency archive storage facility at the Woking Coroner's Court, which is in no way a substitute for a proper archive and is not big enough to take everything that's outstanding. But where archives require immediate deposition, or they will be lost, then we have a facility where we can take them. A few things that we don't do that sometimes people think we do. We don't provide conservation area and historic buildings advice to district, borough or borough councils other than Tandridge. They do this themselves. We don't manage scheduled monument consents or provide advice on scheduled monument management. This largely falls to Historic England. We don't manage the Surrey County Archaeological Unit. We maintain a very arm's length relationship with them for conflict of interest reasons. And we don't run the Surrey Museums Partnership either. That's largely gone into abeyance in the last couple of years, I understand it, but there is a loose association of museums in the county, which is under the umbrella of the Museums Partnership, but we don't run that. That's run from the History Centre. We don't provide detailed advice on historic parks and gardens or landscapes. I wish we did, and I've pushed for having some kind of facility to do that. I'm still working towards that, but that's an issue to, for higher up in the county council to decide whether or not we need the expertise. The problem there is that if it's one of diminishing returns, there's by no way near enough work to support that post within the county council. So it would have to pull in wider work. It's possibly regional, and getting a consensus on who pays for that across a region is quite difficult. So that hasn't happened. We don't carry out commercial, archaeological or heritage projects. I've written sort of after that because we do undertake projects that we get paid for, which you could call commercial work, but these are largely on behalf of districts and boroughs, fellow local authorities. So we're not working for the private sector when we do so. And we don't generally conduct much outreach activity. The archaeological unit has an outreach officer who does that. So we leave that to them. This is just a brief list of who we are. As you can see, myself, the team manager. I'm technically the county archaeologist, although that post doesn't actually exist as a job title. I'm also the DAC archaeological advisor. I do have delegated powers from members as the team manager to decide where archaeological material from Surrey-owned sites goes. So if anyone finds something on a site which belongs to the county council, it falls to me to decide which museum that goes to and where it should be deposited. So that ensures that stuff isn't kind of like, siphoned off or sold, or someone decides that it's worth a lot of money. It stays within the public realm. We have 4 archaeological officers. Nick Truckle, Matt Saywood, Alex Eggington and Nigel Randall. Alex is currently on maternity leave, but both Alex and Nigel are part-time, so they only work 2.5 days a week. We currently have 2 historic buildings officers, Chris Reynolds and Charlotte Parker, who you'll be hearing from later. We have a HER officer, Rob Briggs, who I believe you all know, and HER assistants, Emily Brantz, Sian Mughal and Jasmine Sexton. We have Fines Liaison Officer Simon Maslin, who again, I believe you already know. And we have Tara Chapman, who looks after our administrative requirements. So she logs all our consultations for us and does our admin. This is just a brief slide to show a couple of addresses. I've kind of assumed that these slides will be forwarded on at the end of the presentations today afterwards, and obviously it's been recorded, so I put these on so that people have got our contact details.